Welcome to Startup Wins. Twice a month, we share real stories and smart tips. Subscribe and join the journey.
Welcome to Startup Wins. Today we have a special guest, and this gentleman I found on TikTok, of all places. I'm not on TikTok all the time, but let's welcome to the show, Michael King.
Hey, Brandon, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you being on. So our guests don't know who you are unless they read the description, which I will make sure that we write everything about you. But if you don't mind, could you tell us a little bit about that viral video? And then we're going to talk a little more about you and then maybe some stuff about startups here in a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Actually, so that video I made back in February when it first was announced that there was going to be a tariff on steel, and I get these boxes that are made out of steel, and I've found that I've almost been forced into making them in China. And I was trying to calculate like, how bad are those tariffs going to hurt? So this is way before just like the blanket tariffs were happening, and I just kind of made a video just kind of explaining as a small business owner making steel products in China and being subject to these tariffs. Like this is kind of how I feel about it, and that like overall, China's going to come out ahead because we can't. There's not a feasible way to really bring that kind of massive amount of manufacturing back to America. And so I just kind of was voicing my frustrations about it. Honestly, it's like my least favorite TikTok that I've ever made.
Oh,
For
really?
some reason, it like just went crazy. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I remember having this conversation with you a while back. It seemed so much sensible. I mean, it was very sensible for what you had to do, not before the video, but you're a smaller business that hopefully will grow to a larger size, obviously. But as a smaller business, you can't be spending tons and tons of money on the different products to basically sell to your customers, right? I mean, that was kind of the main issue. Am I correct?
It's money and time and convenience. It's all of those things. So like the whole thing is like when you're trying to work with American companies, it can be kind of difficult to logistically, like you'll send them plans and then there's just like weeks and weeks of back and forth, like, oh, we need you to change that, or we can do that for you, but it costs, we're 300 an hour or whatever, versus you send drawings to China and they say the same thing. They're like, hey, we're going to have to make some changes, but we'll just do that. And then they have it done by like, 2 days from now. And then they send you and, minimum order quantities and are like you can make one thing in China if you want, but like in America, a lot of the times they're like, if you're not going to do 500, then we can't talk to you. And so, just convenience wise, like, in China, they're making my product, they're powder coating it, they're creating a custom styrofoam like enclosure, they're boxing it with like these awesome corners, these like, so that's because they know how to ship across the world. And so then when I unbox it here and then assemble and build it out and then rebox it, it's like super protected. And in America, like I would have to logistically find each one of those pieces, put like organize them all myself, and like I don't have time for that. And so working with China has been, and that's kind of like what in the video I was kind of saying that tariffs would have to go way, way, way up because of the convenience factor before I'm gonna actually, because I'll pay for convenience, right? Like I'll pay for them to just do everything and I don't have to think about it. And I pay a tax for that versus like finding everything in America and finding, and the funny part is like after that video was released, like I had just dozens and dozens of steel manufacturing places reach out to me and I would send them all the plans and they'd be like, hey, we can do that. I'm like, hey, this sounds promising. I sent her the plans, and it was just the same thing over and over and over and over. And like, no one in America wants to make those boxes. No one wants to do all those steps.
So we're kind of entitled, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think, yeah, entitled is a way to explain it. And just I don't know, fat and happy, maybe just
Okay.
like it's
Right.
easier. Like in China, it seems like they really want to work and they really want to bend over backwards for you and they really will fight for your business. That's definitely like a huge separation. Like when you're talking to America, they're just like, man, we don't need this. Like make it easy for us because we don't need this on our plate. We don't care about your business.
Well, I'd love to talk more about this because I'd argue this is somewhat controversial, and obviously that's one of the reasons why the video took off. But let's start off with let's talk about Mike. We want to be Mike, or we want to be like Mike, right? Because Mike has had many years in the startup world, and I'd love to learn a little bit more, or at least help the audience know what you've been doing prior to this. This is not your first rodeo.
Sure. It's the first time I think that I do try, I call myself a first time startup founder because I've always been an entrepreneur and I've always been like a hustler. But this is the first time that I've kind of stumbled into a business that's truly scalable. And I can do it with a small team. And so this is the exciting one. But I mean, I've done lots of different little things. I mean, I've probably started over 20 businesses and failed a bunch of times and whatever. But yeah, I mean, so what, 20 something years ago, I started a vending machine company. I read an ebook online and it was about, I was serving tables at TGI Fridays and I read this ebook about placing gumball machines, like little quarter turn candy machines. And so I got, super zoned in on that. And I started buying those and placing them. And I probably placed about, maybe 45 of those. And I was going around on Saturdays and filling them up and collecting the money. And I ended up making more money doing that than I was serving full time at this restaurant. And then I met a guy along the way that kind of became my mentor, was like, hey, don't mess around with those little machines, buy full size snack and soda and get into vending and do this for real. And so I started buying some of those locations from him and like full size machines and got into that. And then, that was kind of a side gig too for a long time, until I discovered Micromarkets about 6 or 7 years into that journey. And I placed my first Micromarket and immediately, tripled my sales. I had a snack, a soda, and a frozen food machine doing like 250 a week. And they called up to kick me out and said, go get your machines. And I was like, is it what's wrong? Is it my service? They're like, you're great. We're just going to go this different direction. We're going to have this open market. And I was like, well, I can do that too. I couldn't. I don't know. I was just trying to save the account. And so they said, okay, you can stay. And so I got a crash course in markets. And then we immediately started doing like 650 a week in sales. So then the light bulb kind of went off and I was like, well, how much money am I leaving on the table by operating vending machines instead of these markets? And so we systematically over the next few years, like started replacing a bunch of vending accounts with micromarkets. And it was then that I realized that I pretty much hated every software solution that was out there. The ones that I filtered through and tried, I was like, man, these guys it's highway robbery. Like the fees are so nuts. And like the industry standard was to take a portion of your fees, right? Or a portion of your sales as a commission. That was their software fee. And I was like, that's kind of nuts. And so, when this opportunity came my way where one of the guys that was working tech support for one of the companies I was using quit his job and we stayed friends. And then he was like, hey, what if I built a system and solved a lot of the problems that that I've experienced and that you've experienced? And I was like, I'll do it if we can make the fee structure a little bit down to earth. Like, I don't want to take a commission. I just want to have a flat rate fee like the rest of the world does. And so we said, okay, let's try this out. And yeah, we're entering into our 6th year now. And
Awesome.
It's been well received by the industry. When people find out about us, they pretty excited. Everyone pretty much has the same complaint that I did about it all. And so
Yeah, so I wanted to raise my hand earlier because just to make sure the audience knows, what is a micro market?
right. So that's where everything was just out in the open with a self-checkout kiosk. So instead of vending machines, you would basically have like a C-store in your break room, of your workplace break room, typically. And you walk up to it, you're on camera, you grab your items, scan them, just like you would self-checkout at a grocery store. And so, back in the day, self-checkout wasn't really a thing in daily life, right? Like it's sort of a newer phenomenon, but 20 something years ago was the first company pioneering this idea. So the Micromarkets has been around, and self-checkout in the workplace has been around for a long time. It's just kind of now the rest of the world has kind of embraced it. And so,
and this is just purely curiosity. It doesn't necessarily have to do with startup stuff, but what kind of theft rate is there in these open, trusted, areas? Because I bet you that was the main obstacle for them to even occur, I would think. No?
yeah, I mean, surprisingly, most people are honest people. And so theft is between 3 to 5%. Maybe you could expect. I mean, there's like what I call unintended theft, which is someone taps their card and walks away, and then it's thinking, and then it declines the transaction, and they weren't there to witness that. And I don't pursue that very often like that, unless it's like the same guy doing it over and over. He knows what he's doing or whatever. But the general notion is that most people are not really willing to risk their job over a Snickers bar. And so typically, if you are going to place a micro market, you're going to have a conversation with that location first and say, what's your theft policy? What are we going to do when inevitably you're going to hire a bad egg and they're going to come to work and just clean out the market? And we're going to see that, and we're going to bring that to you. And like, how are you guys going to react to that? So before you even ever place one, you just want to establish like, what is the theft policy? How do you want to go about, dealing with it? And then when it does happen, you just be diligent about finding it and presenting it to the location, and then saying, okay, enforce your theft policy, and there you go.
So Mike, you're a small player in this industry, right? But from what I can see, I see vending machines all over the place. And, the airports, as you said, companies have these little micro markets. How big is the TAM here, or how big is the total available market?
I think recently Google says that it's like a $32 billion industry in America, and it's like a $70 billion industry worldwide. And I think that includes everything, though. That's, toy machines to, gumball machines to vending machines to micro markets, and everything unattended.
Okay. And you're growing, from what I remember our previous conversations, like on a month-to-month basis, but you're still kind of a small percentage of the entire equation, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we are the smallest, for sure. Unless there's, another company that I'm not aware of yet. But yeah, I mean, we're by far the smallest, and I assume that we will, just because of the time that's under the other company's belts and whatnot. Like, we might always be the smallest, but it's a big industry, and what we provide is wanted and needed by vending operators out there.
So what is that advantage that you guys have over maybe the 800-pound gorilla?
I mean, there's a few, definitely. Faster, better customer service, more personalized experience. The fact that those companies, while they might have been founded and started like, decades ago by someone who was probably like me, an owner operator, they're so far removed from that at this point that, when you call up anyone else in the industry, you're likely going to talk to a software salesman who's never owned a vending machine or a vending route, or has built a vending business from scratch. And I have that. People on my team have that going for us. And so when you call us up and say, I landed this account, should I take it? What should I put there? How fast do you think, like, what do you think I'm going to make, and how fast am I going to get my ROI? Like, I know the answers to those questions, versus, a software salesman taking their best guess at it. So real advice, a community of other operators giving real advice. And but I mean, cost is obviously the biggest one, because that was like my thing, was I want to make this affordable. It was a huge financial burden for my company operating on these other systems, and it hasn't gotten any better. And so, just talking to people and saying like, hey, this is our fee structure, and you're going to save like 50% on your fees, whatever you're paying to anyone else. And when they kind of sit back and do the math and go, oh yeah, that's actually a lot. I mean, the bigger you are, the bigger the dollar amount is that you're going to save. But just a general attitude out there. I think this might be true across all businesses right now in America, just because of what private equity has done. So, I mean, we're the only independently owned and operated micromarket software solution in the industry right now. So if your choices are, let's choose the company that's a private equity group, or let's choose the company that's a publicly traded company, or let's choose the privately owned and operated one, a lot of people will side to us just for that reason, because they're like, I just want my money to go somewhere meaningful,
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we're all the same thing. It's a point of sale system. It's a place where someone can tap a card and buy something. You know what I mean? And so really it's like, where do you want your dollars to flow? And that's I think a big one right now, that can be like a selling point. But I've heard horror stories from people that switch over from other systems. Like, we ordered a kiosk and it took them 6 weeks to get it to us, and then it took them another 4 weeks to onboard us as a customer, because they're just so big and so slow moving. And I don't know how you tackle those problems. Maybe one day we'll be there too. But I would like to think that we would always be able to give fast, responsive service. That's kind of my whole thing.
So Mike, now this is your first startup, as you mentioned, and I imagine since you've been, how many years are you into this now?
We're entering our 6th year.
Okay. So you've had 6 years of learnings, 6 years of pains, six years of probably like, I got some new secrets I can share with somebody else, right? So do you mind sharing a little bit of that for anybody else is like, venturing into their first
startups? I mean, the only thing that really comes to mind is that I feel fortunate that I didn't choose an industry from the outside looking in. Like, I grew up in this industry. Like, I was running a vending company, and I understood what my own problems were. And I think that this has been said a million times on the internet, and it's easy to find this anywhere. But like, if you can understand a problem and you understand how to solve that problem, like that's the business idea, right? And so I think I was lucky in that I was the person experiencing the problem. I was my own like client that I'm, the person that I'm targeting. And so it was easy for me to be like, yeah, that's what I want. And I know that if I want that, there's probably other people that want that. And so I think if you're just starting from a blank slate and thinking, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't exactly know what direction to go right now, I would say work a lot in industries that interest you, and then find the pain points and see if you can solve a problem. Because that's, I think I see like, there's a lot of people that are just like serial startup founders, right? That just they pitch an idea to VCs or angel investors, and they get some money, and then they try it out, and then they end up like never getting any customers. And they're like, well, scrap that idea. Let's think of another one. And it's like, if you're always looking at an industry from the outside in, and you're thinking like, man, it looks like that might be a problem for people, there's 10,000 moving parts that you're not aware of. And I think that's where most people fall flat. And I'm just lucky that I, went through the motions of owning a vending company and for a long time. And I intimately understood just all the worst parts of owning a vending company,
Sure.
before I started this. So,
well, because it's a startup, however, scaling is possibly one of the biggest challenges. So have you had some, I guess, experiences that you can say, wow, this worked a lot better than I thought, or wow, this is the worst thing I could have done at this point?
I mean, I've definitely made my fair share of mistakes. I mean, what's worked for me is, I wanted to do this I knew that this was gonna work with like 100% certainty. Like I knew that this was gonna work.
Well, what does work mean?
That it was a viable business. Like I knew that if I entered this space, that we would get customers and we would succeed to some degree. And so I was willing to put my own money into it, and we decided to be bootstrapped, which also meant really slow growth, really slow development, because it was just me and my developer partner, and so it was just like build one thing at a time. And I had friends that were excited to get out of their current solutions and jump on board to mine, and so it was. I think yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to go about it. We could have definitely scaled up time ago and built a lot faster. But then I would have the pressures of answering to an investor or meeting certain quotas of growth, and I just didn't want that pressure. So for me, I know myself in having like a low pressure environment and just saying, hey, let's just go with the flow and do this slow and steady. That worked for me. I think if I would have gone out and got funded and then had to deal with those added pressures, it might have, it might have been good, but I'm happy that we did it the way we did. But
So,
that's been, yeah.
so it's a good business. Do you know for sure it's a scalable business? And with that, just an extra question. Let's say somebody did pour $20 million on you, or threw it in your bank account. Do you feel like you could go and capture the rest of the market, or at least a significant part?
Yeah, now, well, I think there's something to be said too about becoming a proven concept. And so I remember the day that people just started calling us to buy our solution that I didn't know, and I didn't know anyone that knew them. And that's when I realized, like, oh yeah, I mean, this is finally real. Like I always kind of believed it was going to be real, and then it started happening. I was like, oh, this is real. This is actually something people want. So I mean, if someone were to pour $20 million on us right now, I know we would definitely continue to scale up. Um, I Yeah, there's a lot of enterprise companies out there that could be had that I think have been on legacy systems for a long time. I think you're going to always encounter the businesses that are just, hey, it's set up, don't mess with it. Everything's fine. I don't want to mess with it. But then you're going to meet the guys who are disgruntled in what they've experienced. And so there's definitely a share of that market that's currently out there. And there's the market is growing. Like we've caught like unattended retail is a tidal wave that's going to sweep across our nation over the next 20 years. And this is the very beginning of it. And so it's a big wave. We're positioned to ride that wave out for as long as we can. And so now is the time to scale up. I think it would be hard if someone was starting now, but we got in, I think, at the last minute, you know. So yeah, there's a lot of scaling up to do, and it's also, I mean, what we're doing is a can be done globally, right? And there's a lot of Micromarkets took off here in the last probably like I would say like in the last like 8 years or so. They've really just taken off, but in a lot of other industrial nations that have tons of industry, they're still using vending machines, and they're kind of just now dipping their toes in micromarkets. And smart coolers is this whole other thing that's taking off right now. And as the wave just kind of swept across America, but it's still just totally growing here. But I mean, everything in Latin America, everything in Europe, all the industry out there is kind of yet to be touched by this. So there's a huge upside potential.
Um, Now people listening in or watching you here on YouTube, um, probably wonder, or I would wonder if I wanted to jump into the startup arena, how many hours does this guy put into his business and what kind of income is he making and how is he sharing with his team? He seems like a nice guy, but like, is he living the life? Is he living, is he squeaking by? Like, what does a startup founder's life after 6 years of building a business feel like?
It's not for everybody, and I have a high tolerance for risk and pain. And so, you know, I will say that it's we're ending the 5th year, entering the 6th year of doing this. I'm just now starting to take some money from this. I've used the vending business that I own to basically fund this. And so, I mean, when we first started out, I asked my partner, how much money do you need a month to live? And he gave me the number, which was pretty much all of my income. and and so I basically was just kind of signing checks over to that guy for the first probably like 8 months, where he sat down and developed our app and the beginnings of our back end inventory management system. And and so I was at home eating broccoli and ramen, for 6 months or so, and just money would enter my account. It would go to him. But I set myself up in a way where, like, I have a property that I lived in, the mother-in-law apartment in the front. I was renting it out to people, and they paid the house payment. So I was kind of like living for free. Business was paying for my cell phone. I really didn't have a lot of expenses. But I think it's not for everybody. Like, not everybody can do that because some people need money, and I definitely sacrificed relationships with friends and romantic partners to make this happen. And being bootstrapped will do that to you, right? And just deciding, like, we're not going to take on any investor money right now. But yeah, I mean, I think I hear the story a lot when I do listen to other people that bootstrapped, is that it's a lot of the times it's a 5-year plan before you make money. And all of us are doing this because we know that there's a payday one day, right? And but instead of taking money earlier, I could have earlier, but I built my team first. So it was like, as soon as we had a little bit of extra income coming in from like monthly recurring revenue, then I would immediately hire, customer service rep, and then, we would grow the money some more, and then I'd immediately hire another developer, and then an app developer, and then another full stack, and so and now I'm dating someone who's super mentally healthy. She's a therapist, and she's like, boundaries, and you have to you have to make some money. And so now there's like some motivation at home to be like, okay, I'll stop with the poor lifestyle, and I'll start taking some money. I would still very much like to hire the next person, but I think the next one to get hired is going to be me. And then we'll focus on building the team out some more. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of been the process, and it's not for everybody.
So when you hire yourself, are you going to give yourself a raise in the first 6 months, or you just going to start at entry level for a while?
I'm gonna make just enough money to make the missus happy.
Okay.
And not a penny more.
And are you working weekends? I imagine you're working Saturdays at least, sometimes Sundays.
Yeah, I mean, and pretty regularly I've worked like, the 7 days a week just to make it happen. And you can always like take some time off and you know, set a schedule for yourself. I'm just a workaholic, and I like diving into projects. And so for me, it's fun. It's not like, it's like what I want to do. My girlfriend's constantly saying, you need to go out and get a hobby. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, I have 100 hobbies. There's a bunch of things I love doing. But right now, what I love doing is building this business. And so, like, if you give me free time, I'm going to the warehouse and I'm going to build the business more. Like, that's what I'm going to do with it. And it's by choice. I'm not stressed out about it. I'm not like, begrudgingly like waking up on a Saturday and going like, oh crap, there's all this stuff I have to do. And I'm waking up excited and going like, I got to go do this stuff. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, somebody tweeted earlier today something like how many hours you have to work week, right? And
Wrong question. How many
yeah,
hours do you have to?
yeah, it was have to,
Yeah.
right? And it was something like, the typical standard obviously is 40, and then they were proposing something like 20. I responded by, how about zero, and make everything passion. So if you are doing everything because you're passionate about it, you may end up working 160 hours a week out of the 172, right? Because you
Yeah.
want to do it.
Yeah. If it's what you, it's how you choose to spend your time. You know, I think, well, beating a dead horse now, but yeah, I mean, if you give me, you know, any time, like I know what I'm doing with it, and it's this, and it's like, it's not, you know, even my business partner who's been paid the whole time, right? Like, cause he got paid on day one, you know, he'll express extreme concern that I'm not getting paid. And he's like, you're gonna, you know, one day maybe walk away from this because, you know, you're not making money. And he's very concerned about that. And I keep telling him, I'm like, you know, this for me isn't about money. It's fun for me to watch something grow. So like to me, it's like I'm watering a garden every day. I'm, you know, weeding this garden. I'm like tending to it, and it's going to grow into this massive, beautiful thing. And for me, that's exciting. Like I just want to see something that I worked on like turn into this awesome thing that runs itself and that is self-sufficient and that is providing a service to other people, and just the feeling of, you know, knowing that you provided value to the community, and being able to stand back and say I created that. That's worth so much more than a 6 or 7 figure paycheck to me anyway. But like, you know, not everyone's like that.
So if somebody comes in, let's say a PE company, and they love your software, they love your hardware, and they say, we'll buy the IP and everything else for $200 million. Would you sell today?
Today for two, well, it's definitely not worth that, but um,
Well, that might not be the best way to sell it, by the way.
I think I would feel bad that they'd be overpaying, but I mean, I don't know how to answer that. I mean, 200 million is a lot of money, but
How about 20 million?
if I 20 million is a no, but if I had to, like, if I did get a payday, like a big payday like that, um, I'm the next thing that I'm going to think about is like, okay, well then what's next? Like, what's the next project? What's the next thing that I'm going to build? What's the next thing I'm going to work on? Because I have to have something. Like, you can't just sit on a beach forever and do nothing. Like, you have to, something has to make life fun.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And for me, like, I mean, honestly, like if I'm on a vacation, I'm usually just kind of waiting for, I mean, that's a real weird way to say waiting for it to be over, but sort of in a way, I'm just like, yeah, you know, at some point it's like time to get back to the business, time to get back to like accomplishing things, you know, setting goals and reaching them. And so if I sold, I mean, I'm not going to, you know, say no to a $200 million payday, but at the same time, I'm then going to turn around and go like, well, what sounds like fun now?
Um, you seem like a nice guy. I actually met you in person. We had dinner one night, and you were a nice guy then. But you're not managing me, nor am I managing you. How's it managing people? And have you had to change your psychology in managing them to make them more efficient or to make sure that the business survives?
Uh, I think I've gotten very lucky in hiring people that are proactive, that don't need to be told what to do, and that are genuinely interested in the project. And I have a really good team. Um, and I mean, we've hired some people in the past that like weren't that, and it's pretty easy to kind of suss that out early on and be like, this guy is not dedicated, you know, he doesn't care about the project. And, you know, we always say like attitude over everything. Like, I would say attitude over education, attitude over past experience. Like if I ask someone a question, the answer, can this be done? The answer should be, oh yeah, I mean it can be done, or we'll find a way, or don't worry about it. Like, yeah, we'll research it, we'll figure it out. Like, yes, the answer is yes. And if I ask someone a question and they're just like, oh, that would be really hard to do, and this is why, and whatever, then it's just like, you're not the guy. Um, and so building our team has been a learning experience. But the thing that I think I've had to adjust to the most in managing people is more just managing my own expectations, and just realizing that like building software takes time, and that if a developer tells me that it's a 2-week thing, I usually just times that by 3 now, and that's where I set my expectation. And then if they reach it before that, I'm happy, or around there, then I'm happy. But if it goes past that, then I kind of start putting the hammer down and saying, okay, well, give me a real timeline, what are we looking at here, because I have to be able to communicate that to people. But I mean, just understanding that workload, that you have to set realistic expectations from your team.
Yeah, very
Been the
much.
biggest learning experience, I think.
Well, you say you got lucky, but I would argue you created good job descriptions. You looked in good networks. You had great referrals from quality teammates that you have right now. So it's breeding more people because of your current network, and maybe it stems from you. I would argue, like as we build our venture capital firm, we've been pretty lucky in the candidates, applying for the general partner, because their ethos is the same as our mission statement and our manifesto. So I'm going to argue, for your sake, it might be because of you. Would you disagree, or?
I mean, if it is because of me, it's definitely just because the only thing that I took part in is just saying, yes, let's hire that person. But I think that when I say we've gotten lucky, it's that like we tend to stumble upon people that are grateful, I think, and that are talented, or willing to develop their skills. But overall, it's just the attitude that these people are. Maybe they've had bad jobs in the past, and then when they meet us, and they're like, "Oh, this is actually a pretty chill work environment, and I can just kind of be creative and do my own thing." But they produce results, and their attitude is just super humble and grateful, and there's just kind of like no ego in any of them, and that's where I feel lucky.
Awesome. Well, congrats on that. Hopefully that continues. So I'd love to actually start to ask you the 3 Qs that we actually end the show with, because it gives us a little bit more insight into who you are. So we ask 3 questions always. Who's your hero? Who are good role models? And I will save the last one because it's a simple one, and I think it won't be too hard to answer. But first off, who's your hero, or do you have any heroes in this world?
Well, I mean, if there was one person that I would ever want to be able to meet, it would definitely be I don't know if I say this name right, but it's Paramahansa Yogananda, the guy that brought yoga to the West. That would be my hero. Yeah.
And why is this? And could you say his name again, because that was hard to understand?
Paramahansa Yogananda. Yeah. I mean, if to anyone who's ever read Autobiography of a Yogi, it's very clear. I think he's a very prominent figure, and a lot of people's hero, for a lot of good reasons. But it would be just super interesting to meet and sit down and talk with that guy.
Cool. How about role models? Do you look up to certain folks that maybe have practiced certain things in their lives that maybe you like to emulate?
A lot of that would just come from books that I've read, and I think the most influential, or podcasts that I've listened to,
Is Startup Wins? Just kidding.
So you're getting there, man. So I think Michael Singer, with his books that he's written, has been super influential in my life. Uh, there's that podcast that I've probably listened to over and over and over, definitely more times than any one, which is from the Naval Ravikant. I can't remember what it's called, How to Get Rich or something like that. And then just Gary Vaynerchuk. That guy's, always just, anytime I see any of his videos, it's just these little pieces of wisdom every single time. I've gotten more out of that guy's free content than I think anybody else on the internet.
And why do you call them role models, though? I've heard of Naval. I think I've listened to him speak a few times. He sounds almost religious in the way that he speaks, but
very philosophical. Yeah. Role models, in that I think that if more people were like them or more people emulated them, the world would be a better place.
And why Michael Singer? I don't know Michael Singer.
Michael Singer's interesting book. He wrote a super interesting book, The Surrender Experiment. It's also a book that I've read a bunch of times. I always forget the name of it though. He's a bit an entrepreneur, but not on purpose, which is just kind of a very interesting story how he fell into that. Ended up becoming basically just wanted to meditate and do yoga, and somehow stumbled into being a billionaire and a super influential person in our society, although most people don't realize it. And so that's a very interesting story. To anybody that's wanting a good read, get The Surrender Experiment. Blend of, I would say, spirituality and entrepreneurship in one. It's very interesting.
Fascinating. All right, the last question is easy, and I'm gonna make you promise me is, after you answer it, you're gonna feed me it when I visit you in Salt Lake City.
Oh, okay.
So what's your favorite food?
Well, geez, man, food is my favorite thing. Let's just say that. And so I think the next big thing I'm going to do in life is take a trip to Italy just to eat. But I mean, yeah, in Salt Lake City, there's some good places. We won't go hopefully out just once, but maybe a few times. I can show you a few different places in Salt Lake. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. That's good to hear. So Italian basically is your favorite.
All food is my favorite. My favorite thing is food.
I see.
I will travel just for food, just to try it out. Food and local beers. And that's my favorite thing to do. So I'm just all about it.
Well, since not everybody knows that we had this experience in Las Vegas at Master Kim's, what do you think of Master Kim's?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's an awesome place. Korean barbecue is always near the top of my list of good foods to try, Yeah. I got lucky to be born in this culture. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Michael. Honestly, it's always a pleasure talking to you. And, maybe at some other later point, maybe at the 12-year mark, if I'm still alive, maybe we'll do a rewind, or not a rewind, but version 2 of how things are. At that point, obviously you'll be at the $100 million mark, probably, with your net wealth, and, aiming for $1 billion, I imagine.
It would be fun. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
If your calendar isn't already set, you're missing out on startup wins. Industry leaders, top advisors, and incredible tips await. Come back for future great episodes and entertaining guests, and come back for more insider strategies and incredible stories from the brightest VCs, founders, and operator experts. We're bringing you the best in the business twice a month. Hit that bell and stay winning with Startup Wins. See you soon.